Hello, and welcome to the Steve and Mark Discuss podcast, where I will listen to Steve talk for a few minutes about a subject of his choice, but he hasn't told me what it's going to be, and I will respond. So, over to Steve.
Hi, people. Well, Mr. Mark, you already know what I'm going to talk about this time because I sent you a news report
Oh, yeah.
about this last night.
Yeah.
And I thought before I saw this news report, which was not easy to get to. You had to go and click on one report to click onto another report before you get to this. So it was well hidden.
Yeah.
And I thought before I saw this report, I thought I was being a little bit harsh on the UK military. But it seems that not so much. I could be a little bit harsher, and I think I might be now.
Yes.
Around about 20, I think it was 20 years ago, Gordon Brown, who was Prime Minister at the time,
Yeah.
he started the project to a £7 billion project to build two aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
One was the Queen Elizabeth II, and the other one was the Prince of Wales. And around about 2010, it had what we would call an HS2 moment, where it turned out to be more expensive than what the estimate was, as always is when you talk about government contracts and government projects. And they were talking about scrapping them, and they decided, no, let's carry on building these because it's cheaper to finish building them than what it was to scrap them for some reason. So there you have it. The Navy, the Royal Navy, has got these two aircraft carriers. One which doesn't work, which was the Queen Elizabeth II, who when she tried to leave port, broke a propeller shaft.
Oh, yeah.
And these are not things you buy off the shelf, you know.
Yeah.
As there were only two aircraft carriers built to their specifications, they're going to have to make a new propeller shaft with propeller from scratch to put in its place. And the Prince of Wales had to take Queen Elizabeth II's place.
Yeah.
To do these war games in the North Sea somewhere. And with hardly any crew on board because there aren't enough sailors to man the thing and no planes. You know, they have to get planes from the Royal Air Force, and planes from the United States Air Force, so they can have some planes on deck.
Yeah.
So you knew before I read this report that things were not looking all that good for the Ministry of Defence. But even so, Grant Shapps, he was beating his chest like a huge gorilla when he was talking about Ukraine and all this. And I said at the time, I don't know why he's beating his chest so much. It's almost like he's just trying to be seen. As the UK falls into oblivion, all things military, you know.
Well, yeah.
So this report, it says that the Ministry of Defence might have to sell the Prince of Wales, which has spent most of its life in dock, as has the Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
To a friendly country like Australia or like the US for pennies on the pound. You know, they have to sell it cheap because the Ministry of Defence doesn't have any more money. And apparently the budget, which is coming up now, doesn't have any provision for defence. if anything, it's reducing defence spending, and
Okay.
not. So what we have is an aircraft carrier which is
Mm,
underused because they can't find the staff,
mm,
being having to be sold off, so that the Ministry of Defence can copper up,
mm.
and copper up. It means count your pennies, count all
Yeah,
your
yeah,
pennies, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah. And the old
it's a
counting
northern
tables. Yeah, yeah.
it's a northern expression. So they can copper up and keep the existing
Mm,
infrastructure going.
mm,
And I said, I asked in this other podcast if Britannia still rules the waves, and it strikes me that she doesn't.
no, well,
You know, um, and the support ship for the
mm,
Prince of Wales
mm,
is to be decommissioned in
mm,
2028.
right.
So we've got 4 years of so in 4 years, if they don't flog the Prince of Wales,
Mm,
is going to be like a king with no clothes because he's
right,
got nothing to protect him.
right. Right. I again, I had a conversation with someone about this morning. Funny enough, but there's somebody
Mm.
a little bit more knowledgeable than me. But yeah. Now I'm going to ask a question. What is the use really of an aircraft carrier? Well, let's look from a British point perspective. What's the use of having an aircraft carrier? Sent of a strike group or something. Okay.
There you are. That's
Patrick
what
Griffin.
you
Yeah,
just answered your question with an answer there.
but you do. Okay, where do we go? What have we got to defend? And the only thing I can think in my lifetime, really, well, okay, we've got problems in the Middle East and things, but it's a little bit more involved in that. It's the Falkland Islands. There's no way that, for example, somebody involved in the Falkland Islands years ago, yes, the yes minister joke, there's things
Yeah,
down
right.
there about being able to put troops on a goodwill visit to islands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Navy gets there. As I said, they're always the taxi service. Effectively, the Navy used to joke they were just the taxi service.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to say, do I really think? I mean, I'm going to be quite honest. In today's modern age, an aircraft carrier is a target. Okay, you can put cruisers around it, frigates around it to protect it, and everything else. So really, you're protecting something that's that you don't really use. And when you say, yeah, doc, they're not used, I don't think they are. A country like Australia, for example, which is totally isolated, would probably benefit more from aircraft carriers and that ability to sail and go somewhere else than probably the UK would now. You can do a lot of strikes now. It depends who your enemy is. There's a lot of strikes now, airstrikes with drones and missiles. Yeah, I'm only applying logic. I'm applying a bit of logic here. I know getting troops, people on the ground and support, air support and all that is vital. I watch the Smithsonian Channel, very good if anyone's got a Samsung TV. Some very good programs about that, namely about American military, but the principles are the same. Yeah, they look at this. What's their use? They are expensive to keep going. I believe that the Americans at any one time can have up to, they've got 11 battle groups. I think it's 3 or 4 always in active service somewhere. Yeah. And that does involve, I think, nuclear submarines. How many nuclear submarines does the UK have? Possibly our defence would rely more on nuclear submarines and around the Falkland Islands and anywhere else, the ability to launch very lethal and not so lethal weapons very quickly, and we don't know where they are. Yeah, I remember a few years ago
HMS Vanguard didn't prove to be very effective,
well,
did she?
okay, yeah, we covered that the other week. But again, I mean, I play devil's advocate on that, and that's what I'm doing here. I mean, is it a nice to have? Where's it going to go? What we're going to use it for? The notion of WW3 will probably be a more land-based conflict than anything else. Britain would probably still plays a big part in actual communications and espionage and things like this. Again, I don't really know what the thinking is. Yeah, as you said, the politicians like things that can beat their chest about. If these things that they can beat their chest about aren't really any good at all, useless, then what's the point? Yeah, there's probably other strengths that the British have always had that we don't talk about. We've probably got the best, with the exception of probably the Israeli special forces. You know what I mean? Yeah, espionage, stroke, special forces. We've got other strengths. We probably can't deploy the amount of, as I said, I think it's going to be more important to actually, have have working machine guns with the troops on the ground rather than these big expensive white elephants. I mean, I'm not a defense analyst. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, the ultimate end of World War III would probably mean anything we have like this is pretty damn useless anyway, to put it bluntly. Don't forget the next war will be partly cyber attacks, will be on the ground. Tank warfare is proving to be more and more useless with the counter weapons that are available. So yeah, war from air, even insignificant. Of Ukraine can launch drones against Russia. Russia can launch drones just because they come from against targets.
You've opened up quite a few different points, and I'd like to reply to them. You said that drones and missiles can. You don't need an aircraft carrier because drones and missiles can do a lot of what the planes can do. Therefore, using that logic, you don't need planes. Well, and so we may as well scrap the Air Force as well.
Well, yeah.
What's the point of having an aeroplane if you can send a missile?
Well, what is the state of our Air Force at the moment anyway?
Yeah. Well, but and I'm not sure that I can agree with that.
No, with that
idea. The use of an aircraft carrier is exactly the same use as what NASA is trying to do with the moon, or Elon Musk is trying to do with the moon. It's a staging point.
Yeah.
A few podcasts ago, I've mentioned that some British, the Royal Air Force, had sent some rockets. I don't know if it was for the Houthis.
Yeah.
But they had to, because the UK didn't have aircraft carrier in the Red Sea. I think it was there. They had to send their aeroplanes from a humongous distance, 3,000 miles, I think.
Yeah.
To send there, and so the aircraft carrier is exactly that.
Yeah.
It's a staging point. It's a staging point.
Elon
Musk is wanting to do the same thing with the moon on the way to Mars.
Yeah.
Staging point.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
As 2/3 of this world, this planet, is made up of water.
Yeah.
I suspect that an aircraft carrier, if it's properly used, would be able to serve quite well, as long as the government has the money to run it.
Well, okay, I'm just gonna think out of the box here a bit. Okay, drones don't have crew on board. You need very limited staff. You don't need to man 3,000 people on an aircraft carrier. You could probably just almost do it with, I don't know, 100 possibly. You could almost have a floating raft that you tow into position. Yeah, I'm not saying. I'm just now going into like fancy, just having an off the cuff thinking that you could float this up because you haven't got to have accommodation for so many people, which an aircraft carrier is. It's a working city. In effect,
that's right.
So if you've got drones, and you can on this, you could also have the ability to shoot the rockets off. Maybe I'm just inspiring somebody. Probably not the British. Probably our enemies. So that's a good idea. Hope not. But but if I can think of it, and I'm thinking stupid, somebody else can.
I'm the same. I'm the same. If I can think of it. And I'm not the brightest bulb in the.
although it's,
then somebody else would think about it as well.
although it's a bit like, yeah, the story, it's different stories I've heard about, yeah, the simplest man in the room comes up with the best ideas because he doesn't over elaborate. But yeah, yeah, I mean, to me, I think I heard it said years ago that aircraft carriers are dated anyway, and that's why the Russians haven't really gone big into them. Yeah, does Putin need them as well? Or Putin Russia?
Well,
They've not.
the landmass of Russia is so
Yeah,
huge,
but he still wants his. Yeah,
but only like I said,
yeah,
as a staging point.
yeah,
Because if Russia had a problem with the US,
mm,
for example,
yeah,
then they'd have to send warplanes from Russia
yeah,
to drop bombs on the US.
mm,
If they had an aircraft carrier in the
mm,
mid-Atlantic,
yeah,
in international waters, then they can send the planes from the aircraft carrier.
yeah. Well, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what they're there for.
Well, that's what I mean. But if you're talking, if I mean, you've got the F-20, was it the F-22s, F-35? Yeah, the F-22s. I think now in the US are incredible pieces of kit, but they've got a
Yeah.
20-year life on them. Yeah, there's probably halfway through their 25-year life. Um, they are they're all singing, all dancing, and everything. They have the ability to actually launch missiles, yeah, from quite a distance in radars and things like that. Incredible technology. Okay, they might need a thing. Maybe, I mean, it's like I said, the Americans can sneeze up a battle group within hours, quite literally. But I think there's even questions now in the US about it all. It's like I said, they can send drones because they haven't got the weight of a man and everything else. Got the weight of a bomb. I mean, even suicidal drones, you could probably fly from the US or the UK to where you want to go, dropped itself down, bang. So do we? Again, I'm going to ask: do we need all this hardware? Again, I've heard different defense or military analysts say different things. Defense analysts is against it. Maybe we've got to be looking, not fighting in wars in remote places, maybe defending our own shores more and more. Much we can't even manage to do that simply with armed people. So, yeah, that's getting to a different issue. But yeah, again, I'm trying to play devil's advocate. What's the thinking here? It made a bit of sense. Yeah, we're not using this thing. Let's flog him. Yeah, I don't know. Are we so hard up? Have we literally got no farthings to rub together that we got to start selling off the
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah. But to the Australians, do the Australians have the money? Do they need it? For example, I know you give an example, Australians. Do other countries? What is a friendly country to us that needs an aircraft carrier? Germany aren't going to buy one. Yeah.
In the article that I was reading,
yeah,
it just said friendly countries like Australia or the US.
Yeah. Well, the US.
But I mean, you could stick Canada on top of that, which is joined to the US.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they've already got a buyer for it already and just preparing the people for it. Maybe not long after it was ordained, it was sort of, well, we've already got a buyer for it. It doesn't matter. We'll just sell it.
China are knocking up ships.
Yeah.
Weekly.
Well, yeah. I mean, are they good quality ships? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Yeah. It doesn't matter, I suppose, the number. But again, as we're coming to this about people saying about China having massive army, any military person will tell you that size doesn't always matter. It's how you use it. That's the big thing. And if you can keep it, if you can keep it functioning, so to speak, yeah. Yeah, I mean, logistics is everything. Have China got logistical abilities? Okay, we work as a coalition when we go in anywhere now. I mean, okay, the US does supply the British ships. Maybe that's embarrassing. Maybe it's not. Maybe the French do as well. Maybe, maybe that's it. It's coalition. I mean, we are objecting to a European army for lots of different reasons. But what's the difference between that and NATO? NATO will help each other.
Well, they won't apparently. We went on
we've
this.
just covered that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the theoretical. If something did big kicked
No,
off.
theoretical is one thing.
Yeah.
You know, how many have heard that person said, "I've got your back"?
Well, okay, but with that,
and then when you need them, they say, "Oh, whoa, hold on there."
Yeah, but now we got the EU countries saying we're not going to support, we're not going to do this with NATO. They're not going to do it with a European army, an EU army, are they?
It reminds me of a joke from Bernard Manning.
Yeah.
He said that there's two guys talking, and one said, "Hey, you've been my best mate for over 50 years. If you won the pools, if you won the lottery,
yeah,
would you share half of it with me?" And he said, "Of course, you've been my friend for 50 years. Of course I'll share it with you."
yeah.
He said, "Oh, that's." He says, "If you had two Rolls Royce cars, would you give one of them to me?" He said, "Look, you've been my friend for 50 years. Of course I'll give one of them to you." He says, "Oh, well, if you had two chickens, would you give one of them to me?" He said, "Hold on there." He said, "You know I've got two chickens."
Yeah. That's right.
So that your coalition people are only be coalition up to a certain degree. They're not going to cover your back.
Yeah, as you say, you always know your true friends are who your true friends are in a crisis. But yeah, which is so I know I can't depend upon you, Steve. You know that's.
Well, I thought I made that clear.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you didn't sort of. You didn't beat around the bush. You're a real bloody Yorkshire man.